Okay. All right. Let's pray. Oh God, thank you for the beauty of this day and for the seasons of our lives, and for this church and the beauty of it. We are grateful to be together this morning to talk about one of those seasons, which is dying. And it's something that many of us may fear. So be with us, be in our conversation, and do your work of equipping us, equipping us for our loved ones and for ourselves. In Jesus' name, amen. So we are glad that you're here. It's not normal that you would be doing a hospice talk on a Sunday morning, but I think that for everything there is a time and there is a season for laughing, for crying, for living, for dying. It is a natural part of life, and to do it well is a great and holy gift. And so, how many in here have had a loved one on hospice? Quite a few. Good for you. Hospice in itself is an amazing ministry and gift because people who walk this path with folks in this transition, in this, I like to say, birthing process. Um, the we get here through a birth canal, and we leave here and go to the next through a birth canal, and there's a lot of labor that goes with it, and so that's what our hospice folks help with. There are good hospices and bad hospices. I want to make sure that if you are engaged with a hospice business, they're businesses, right? That if it's not going well, there are others. Transfer to another, or maybe another caregiver if you need, whatever. And I would like to introduce my wonderful panel here, of which I am also part of it. But Lisa Suter, yeah, yeah, and Lisa, would you tell us about your hospice experience just briefly?
Okay.
Especially like where, because each of us had our person or people in different locations. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So yes, I'm Lisa Suter. My sister Tara was diagnosed with ovarian cancer when she was 42. She was single, had never married, didn't have any children. And in 2017 is when she went on to hospice. And prior to that, she had full blockage from the cancer. And at that point in August, it was in August of 2017 when her oncologist said, "There's nothing more I can do for you." And he actually recommended hospice. He was amazing. He was not, I'm sure maybe others have had experiences where, there's false hope given of, well, you can continue to treat, et cetera, et cetera. She didn't want to stop treating. Um, and we weren't all in alignment as a family either, as to whether, I think some viewed it as giving up versus what hospice could do for whatever time she had left to be comfortable and enjoy those days. But so she went on hospice in end of October, 1st of November. So it was a couple months so that she did continue to treat with no result. Finally, into hospice. We were with Faith Hospice at the time, and it was right after the T. Boone Pickens Respite Palliative Care Center had opened. And so she was in both. She was at home. She moved in with me because, like I said, she was single and didn't have any kids. So she moved in to our house and lived with us from September to when she passed away in January of 2018. So we had hospice coming to the house. And then when she would be at a point where she needed some additional help, we would go down and spend some time at T. Boone Pickens. So it was amazing to have both of those options for us.
So Stephen Pickens, just so you know, is an inpatient hospice facility. It is currently closed. They are trying to reopen it. VNA, Visiting Nurses Association, has bought Faith Hospice. It all happened in the last months, and VNA has to get certified for not in home, but inpatient hospice certification. And so that's what's happening right now. And just wanted to update on that. Okay, Susan. This is Susan Engel, everyone.
Thank you, Ellen. I am Susan Engel. My brush with hospice care has been multifaceted. I'm a social worker, have done most of my work in a hospital setting, and I have referred many people, families and patients, to hospice care, which wasn't just up to me. I, would refer them to a hospice company, and the company would come to the hospital and do their assessment and talk with the patient, talk with the family. So, I mean, I've known about hospice for a long, long time because I used it in my work, and never had to confront that decision as an individual and as a family to get someone on hospice until my dad was probably a year before he was dying of heart issues. And he was in Oklahoma City. I'm here in Dallas. Neither one of my two sisters were around Oklahoma City either. But at one point, we did get hospice to come in, and they used their program. He was in independent assisted living at the time, and they just took our place and many other areas too, because none of us were there to be, pop in every day or even have him come move home with one of us. So from afar, I had a personal relationship with a hospice company. And then when John got sick, my husband got sick, and it was looking like the Alzheimer's was winning. So at one point, he died the end of December of 23. So the beginning of 23, right after Christmas 22, we got together, we being my son and my daughter and I, and interviewed. You were talking about different hospice companies. We interviewed 4 hospice companies, 2 huge ones, VNA being one and Faith being the other, and then 2 smaller companies. And so they sent representatives to the house, and the 3 of us had our series of questions. And after the second or third one, and we're waiting for the next person to show up, we kind of laughed because my son Chris had taken over a couple of the questions. He always asked that question. Carolyn would ask another question. So we kind of had our roles as what we were asking the companies to respond. And so we did choose one of the companies, and as I said, that was the end of January, and in December, John died. So he was really on hospice more than 6 months, that you have to say. So those are my, those are my brushes with hospice. Some of them very, very close, and so it was kind of, in thinking about this question, it was kind of interesting that, I knew about hospice. I referred people when I was at work, and then it got closer with my dad, and then it got very close when John got sick. So that's my experience with hospice.
Thank you. Oh, yes.
What were some of the questions you asked?
Okay, yeah, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Yeah. Okay. One thing to note is that the purpose of hospice is to make each day the best it can be. To make each day the best it can be. And so it's you can imagine how that can look on this decline. And so my experience is that my folks were both on hospice, and they were both in group homes. And a group home is a residential home with a handful of patients, and then you know, a couple, 2 to 3 caregivers that are very consistent. It's a great experience, and often group homes work with a particular hospice. And so when that's the case, I see big head nods. Yes, they do. And when that's the case, if they're coming to this person, then they might check on this person. So the care increases in that. And we've done it both ways. One with using that group home hospice, and then the other was with a different hospice. And that was a little bumpier, but we had such, my dad was already on that hospice when he was going into this situation. So, so it was a little, yeah, either or. So, yes, some of the questions, what are some of the questions that you are asking? Well, first of all, how do you get on hospice? You have to have a doctor's order. You have to have, with my mom, when she broke her hip the second time, and it was clear, and that was maybe 4 years after she broke it, the first one, which landed her in an assisted living. Then the decline continued, and I do want to say that just breaking a hip doesn't mean you're gonna do it, because I'm a living testament to that. But it can, especially, you know, at a certain point. And the her when she broke her hip the second time, we were in the hospital, and we knew that she would not rehab, and it would just be more unsettling and upsetting to her. And so actually, my sister and I, who had hospice experience, said, we think that now's the time for hospice. She's not going to rehab. We know her, you know, and they did an evaluation, and they agreed, and there we went. And she was part of the decision, though. She was kind of barely with us cognitively. She wanted to go back to the group home. She didn't want to go to a rehab. And so that's kind of a thing. But you do have to have a doctor's order. It is a government-assisted, like, mega. Yeah, there's a lot of money in. Yes, John.
Covered by Medicare Part A.
Covered by Medicare Part A, and it is you can get the hospital bed, you can get Depends, you can get all the prescriptions, oxygen treatment, all that stuff comes through hospice. So it's a big advantage, and yeah.
And you can to get a referral.
Yes.
You do not have to wait until a doctor says.
Yes, that's a good.
A doctor says, I worked really hard. I worked in hospice 22 years. I worked really hard to ask for a referral for my father because he did hospice.
Yeah.
And they said, well, the doctor hasn't ordered it. I said, I understand. But the doctor can make a referral to this hospice company to come out and evaluate. And he met criteria and he was on hospice. But a lot of people don't know you can ask.
Yeah, which was, yeah, good. Jack. Wait just a second. This is going to be a story, so I need to get back there with this microphone. It's, even though we're not micing in the room, this is how they hear us online. So you have to speak up for the room.
Thank you. My wife was diagnosed with acute myelogenous leukemia in 2006, and she had a doctor who was just fantastic. But over a period of about 2 years, it came back, and she had to get a stem cell transplant. As time progressed, was breaking all the records about living longer because of her doctor's treatment strategies. But eventually, in about 2018, she went on hospice, and we had Faith Hospice, and I can't tell you the value that they brought to her care, because so much of it was reimbursable, and they came to our house and et cetera. Well, she'd been taking all these meds to control her blood sugars and stuff, and they worked with us, and finally they took her off a lot of the meds, and she got better. So it got 18 months and off of it. So you can get on it and then get off of it. But when she went on it, she was close to that, she was not breathing well and a whole bunch of things. But anyway, and I want to give thanks to the church and all of our small group and people that helped us through that. She's alive today. She's at Apple Court, and she's there because she's had some short-term memory issues with Alzheimer's. But hospice has been very helpful.
Thank you. And yes, you can go off of it, but if you go off of it, it's gonna be rough to get back on it. Hospice, treating the illness like Lisa said. You're not doing cancer. Will you get a bladder infection, they won't test for a bladder. If you start showing symptoms, they're not going to do a test. They're not going to analyze it and treat it, but they will give broad spectrum antibiotics to help make every day the best it can be. And so very good. Thank you. Thank you for that input. Yes, in choosing a hospice, what are some of the questions, or what experience did you have?
Well, we were not she was not at a time of life initially where that would have even been on the radar. So when they first talked about that, I was like, wow, okay, this is where we are. And so we didn't know a lot about it. I was familiar with Base Hospice because I knew they had officed here before. And so that was the only one I was familiar with. So that's the only one we talked to. They were very nice when they did come out. We did have them come out and met us in the hospital with her. My sister, for those of you who know, she lives in Australia. I think she was in Switzerland at the time. So we had her on FaceTime, and then my parents and myself and Tara. And that's when we first heard that was like, well, when you go on hospice, you stop treating. And that was kind of like, that was a hard stop for a couple in the family. So, but, we kept her card, stayed in touch. And now, so particular questions we had is with the full abdominal blockage, her nutrition came through TPN. So she had a port in her arm with an IV. We did that at home. I learned how to do that. And then, so once we went on to hospice, we needed to make sure that we had somebody, a nurse, and that they were equipped to deal with, the particular medical things that were keeping her comfortable and fed, et cetera. And they said, yeah, they could do that. And since they had the T-Boons had just opened up, they took her down there straight away. So we had the option, and that was a big plus for us as well, that she could be at home as long as she could be. But then if need be, we could go down there, spend a few days, and then even come back home. We did that a couple different times through the process. But finding, and then.
What was the decision to go down there? Was it to give family respite, or what?
No, it was more for her comfort, where like some of the meds, the meds weren't working that we had at home. Things would get out of whack. And so I think when we first went, she was trying to take, before we didn't have her on IV pain med. That was not what was going through her port. She was trying to take it orally, and that was a process when things don't necessarily stick around the stomach very long. There's the process of that. So once we got her down there, they could get her on the IV. Hers was Dilaudid, and regulate that and do all of that to where she was stable. to where she could come back home. I think she spent a couple weeks down there initially, and then we came back to the house. And I think we went once for a few days and then came back but for the most part, she was at home until the last week of her life when she went down.
And Gail, I'm gonna do while you're thinking, I'm gonna do a switcheroo and add, are you gonna stick around? Are you here? Yes. Okay, because I didn't realize that she had had 22 years, and so really she should be up here.
Okay.
So, can you come up, Ellen, come on up here. Why don't you think?
Sure.
Panel, don't you
Yes,
think?
that is the correct answer.
Yeah.
Yes, Ellen, yes.
I ought to let you answer this question, Lynette. Somewhere in my computer at home, I didn't even think to look them up, are those questions. And, but the first one I think we asked after we had introduced everybody, and John was there. He didn't participate verbally, but he was in the room, and I don't know how much he was gathering, but he was there. The first thing we asked was, tell us about your company. You know, we know a little bit about hospice. We kind of acted dumb. Know a little bit about hospice, but tell us more. And so that's where we started. And so obviously to give them a chance to do their marketing song and dance. And it was interesting how, in obviously many cases, they were the same. And in other cases, excuse me, other cases, they did highlight the special things that their particular company had and you know would offer. One of the things that I had researched, and I don't know that we asked them this, was whether they were for-profit or not-for-profit company. There aren't many that I found back then that are not-for-profit. And it, to me, having made those referrals many times, it made a difference to know that, you know, I wasn't going to change the company or anything, but it was just one of those facts that we knew before going into this interview. I think the other thing that was important to us, in addition to the regular hospice things that you're offered, what is the special of your company? Some had music therapy. Now, it's not healing therapy, but some, you know, it was a musician from their company coming in and adding a different part of their day. I'll never forget my dad. I found out later, his very favorite hymn was the Old Rugged Cross. And we all say, yes, well, I didn't know that about him. And I mean, grew up in the Presbyterian church with him standing right next to me in the pew. But it came from the music therapist. She said, oh, he just loved to sing that song. She'd bring her guitar. And so those kinds of times with someone who is nearing the end of their life is very special for them, of course, but it's also special for the family. And many times, if the patient is at home, if your loved one is at home, you're so busy taking care that there's no going and getting your guitar if you had one and sitting down and singing some songs. So it was just little things like that that we wanted to know that were options with all those 4 companies.
You have any thoughts on that?
Introduce
Yeah, this is the Reverend Lynette Solomon. She's been in hospice for 22
Yeah.
years. She needs to be on this panel.
I worked for a for-profit hospice for 22 years in East Texas, based out of Athens. And I was the hospice chaplain, volunteer coordinator, and bereavement coordinator. I think it's important to know that all standard hospices are to be providing a minimal amount of coverage. So nursing, aide, patient care technician, social worker, chaplain, volunteer, 10% of their service hours, of all of their service hours in their organization are supposed to be volunteer. Durable medical equipment, medicine related to what they are diagnosed for, what the disease there's a criteria. All of those things should be standard across the board. So those are great questions to ask, like, how often will your nurse come out every week? How often will the aide come out to help with bathing and activities of daily living? Do you have a volunteer program? And what does that look like? What about your chaplain, social worker, counselor person? But all of those are requirements for them to get paid per day to take care of your loved one, including all the durable medical equipment they need, including if they need an alternating pressure pad to keep their skin safe, that needs to be provided, and any medicine related to the disease for which they're diagnosed. It is comfort. It is not curative. It is living with the end in mind. And it is, as you all said, you're not trying to hasten the disease progression, and you're not trying to postpone it either. You're allowing the natural progression, and it's palliative care, it's comfort. But no, you always have the right to ask lots of questions, and I would ask about their particular services.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Um, and just a note, Lynette said the medicine for their disease. That can be confusing because we just said we're not treating the disease. But for instance, my dad had COPD. And so he was on Trelegy and all this stuff that allowed him to breathe. It wasn't curing it. It wasn't, but it was a maintenance dose. They will even do chemo if there is it's a special case. If a tumor is pressing on the spine, and that is so painful, so you get the gist of it.
Or radiation.
Radiation, yes, for comfort, yeah. And let me see if there's anything else I want to add. So I looked in our, one thing that I did is I find someone who's been with that hospice. Even if, I mean, there's a lot of people in the church that have had experience. Our very favorite hospice, Holding Hands Hospice, had to close in May because the owner, it was a beautiful hospice organization. It was very flat and very flat hierarchically, so light on its feet. And Aqua died in a motorcycle wreck on North Tollway. Aqua was the owner, Aqua Umoran. So that is a lot of grieving for me. He was the hospice. They were the hospice company for my dad. And at that time, Susan Irby was dying, and I was trying to get her in with a hospice. And then we find out that T. Boone Pickens is closed, and then Susan just kind of gets out of here. She goes. She went on home. So all that was solved. Praise God. Okay. Talk about your family being on the same page or not. How did that work? And I bring it up because you had mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, at that point, so it was my parents and then my sister, who at the time was living in Switzerland, and then myself. Once her oncologist said that there's nothing more we can do and actually recommended it, and I had read a book by Atul Gawande, I can't remember the name of it now, but he was all about, as far as, towards the end of life, not the medical profession not pushing treatment in that. So when he said that, I was like, okay, this must be where we're really at. This is that. But particularly my sister was not. I think my parents would have gone either way. I think Tara was probably ready. There was a point, but my sister thought, no, we should continue to try and treat. She was not there. I mean, my sister was only 45, almost 45. And I think Tara didn't want to disappoint anybody. So that was hard. So she did treat, and it wasn't productive, and it took some time. And I remember having a conversation with her, because she was, I I think she might have said something. It's like, I don't know that I can do this. And I said, well, then don't. You don't have to. I don't, you're suffering, it's killing me to watch you suffer. You don't have to do this. And then, so some more conversations at that point. We finally got agreement and we called one of her chemo nurses and said, and I said, what, and she said, yeah, this is probably the time. So.
Yeah, thank you. Any other thoughts on that from anyone? So, yeah, I think that it's really important that the patient, if the loved one, if cognitively present, that they be on board with it. And that's it. That can be really hard in a family. And so a lot of times that's a good time to get a pastor involved to help walk that line with you if you don't yet have a hospice, a chaplain. I don't know any good ones, right? Oh, wait, no, wait, right here in the room.
No good ones.
No,
good
this one,
ones.
she got calling that, yeah, to have someone walk that path with you that knows the path. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Being Mortal.
Being,
Book, if you have not read it.
being mortal. Yeah. Go one day. Yeah. It was there. She found it. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. Yes. Get on board. So for you online on the recording, the question is there a way to help dissenting family members that are often far away get on board? And I heard you say yes. And so you want to speak to that? Yeah.
Yes, families are messy.
Yeah.
And it is often those that are on the margins of the day-to-day care that struggle the most. And I think there are a lot of reasons for that. I think sometimes it's also their own guilt, regret, remorse or inability to be there. So you have all of that. Family meetings are very important to get all those dynamics in the room and to focus on what the patient wants. Just a little personal example. And this is a plug, get your advanced directives done. Get your advanced directives done. Your medical power of attorney, your living will. My parents, living will is, and all advanced directives are you're saying in advance what you would like to be done with your care when you can decide, when you have decision-making capacity. So it is in writing. The medical power of attorney is the person that's making those medical decisions for you. The living will is an instruction guidebook for that person making your decisions. It helps with families. My mother had a medical power of attorney. My mother was an old RN, retired, did not want feeding tube, artificial nutrition. If I'm gone, let me go. She wanted to walk into the pasture and just die like the Native Americans. And I said, no, Mom, you're not going to do that. But she made me the medical power of attorney. So when Mom had she had a massive stroke. She'd had several TBIs, little ones, TIAs. She had a massive stroke she couldn't swallow. And my brother blew a gasket and said, what are we going to do? We can't starve her. We've got to put in a feeding tube. I said, no, we can't, Will. He said, yeah, we can. We're going to starve her. And I said, no, we can't because Mom didn't want this. This is why she made me the medical power of attorney. It's why you're in charge of the money. She had an advance directive that said, keep me comfortable. No ventilator, no feeding tube. You can make all your specific requests. Had I not had that form, my brother's an engineer. Had I not had that form, I would be ridiculous and emotional or whatever because that's his thinking. Those forms are important, but you get the family into the room, and now we can do it on FaceTime, Zoom, whatever. And you listen to everybody, and you continue to go back to patient-centered care. You know, the patient usually knows what they want when they want it. And there's a conspiracy of silence with the family. You go in to see a patient and they say, they don't know that I'm dying, you know, and they tell me, don't talk to him about dying. Don't talk to him about dying. Okay. But my name tag says Genesis Hospice, you know, but I won't talk to him about dying. And I'm not going to lie about who I'm for. And they go, just don't talk to him about dying. You walk into the room and the patient goes, they don't think I know I'm dying. The patient usually knows. So you got to get all the players in the room, especially if you don't have advanced directives.
Mhm. Excellent, thank you. Woo, yes, Terry. And then,
So my mother was in hospice care, living in this small town.
projected all the way.
Yeah, so my mother was in hospice care, and they were living in a small town. But what hospice did for my father was so helpful because they helped him understand what was happening with her. It helped him accept her dying. And I'm just a huge fan of hospice because it isn't just the patient that they help, it's the family. And that was very important because I could be there every day. And he had these people coming into his home who helped him understand what was happening with my mother.
And I want to speak just for a second to that. When you're a caregiver for someone near death, you know, that is, you're hanging on by a thread yourself because you're trying to walk with them. And so to have a hospice, have other resources coming in, it allows you to have a bit of a respite yourself so you can be your best with them and not be worried about how their care is going. So it's huge, 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 huge. Yes, Jack.
My wife went on to hospice in 2019. She's a nurse, and it was a registered nurse, and she'd already signed the directives. And originally, I was the medical power of attorney. But then after she talked to my daughter, and I talked to my daughter, she was made medical power of attorney for the reason that if my wife had to have critical life resuscitation, I'd want them to do anything they could to save her. But my wife said, no, I don't want that. And I said, well, then I won't make that decision, but I'll let your daughter make that decision. So this cone of silence you talk about is very true. And you need to talk it out with your whole family and make sure that it's exactly what the patient wants.
That's so good. Thank you. Yes, Al.
This is a little bit tangential to the discussion here, but maybe someone is as ignorant as I am, but I have a nephew that became a palliative care doctor. And on a lot of his situations, some of his patients are younger and just have long-term illnesses, but most of them are older people. And when you get to that age, a lot of times you're going to Dr. A, Dr. B, Dr. C, Dr. D. Nobody's pulling all the, and if you're not savvy and are not reading and picking up all the information, you don't know what's going on. So a lot of his job is sitting down with families before the hospice decision is made and going through, okay, let me say he's brilliant and he's a ferocious reader. And so he knows all the treatments basically and what the odds are and things of that sort. So you sit down and doctor wants you to do X, Y, Z. Very passionately, but firmly, he will tell them, well, you have a 5% chance of getting any better with this one, and your quality of life will be X. And then he goes to the next one and the next one and the next one with the whole family there. And they can then decide what they want to do. And one of the options is his referral to hospice. So it's not hospice, but it's kind of on the path.
Yeah.
Very supportive and palliative care.
Mhm.
And your hospitals have supportive and palliative care.
Yeah, so Lynette, for those online, Lynette was saying that the hospitals have palliative care. It is really important if your loved one is in a hospital, um, and the doctors are trying to treat. There is a joke about oncologists is when do they quit treating the patient? It's when they're 6 feet under. They want to win against this disease, and that can be at times at the cost of the patient. And
Their training.
yeah, it's their training.
Curative.
Yes, cure this. And so to go to the palliative care section, it is basically like hospice in the hospital. And their whole intent, it may not be quite the same care, but it's, yeah. Yes.
Hal just reminded me, one of the steps I left out that I went through, I knew a lot about hospice, but this was my husband that I was making this decision for. And I was struggling with it. Just as we all would, saying, oh, this, no more curative care. Well, I was struggling with it. And Hal put me in touch with Sam, his nephew. And one evening, Sam talked with me for 45 minutes. He lives in Georgia. Talked with me on the phone for 45 minutes, kind of, I'm sure it's what he does face to face with the families that are his patients. And he didn't convince me. He just gave me the facts. He just said, what's going on with John in this area? What's going on here? And it was so helpful. And if you ever find yourself in that situation, talking with a palliative care specialist is certainly helpful in making that. It's still your decision, but Sam made it much, well, not easier, but better.
Oh, good.
You knew you were doing the right thing
Mhm.
by that time. Yes,
Mhm.
that's good. So what about actual end of life, like the last week or whatever, and pain control and anxiety? There, it is the hospice has morphine to help with pain control. Morphine slows down the body, and ultimately, the body expires. So are you killing the loved one? Are you hastening death? And the point is not to hasten death, but the point is to give the care that's needed. You can tell when a person is in pain or anxious by their body movements. Um, and that is an important signal. And to get the hospice nurse, or at times they actually leave the morphine with the family now, I think. And so I've not done that in the home, but I know that they had it at the care home, and they wouldn't use it because that's a liability for them, right? But anyway, so that just know that palliative care, making every day the best it can be. When you're close, when you are in that birth canal, it is painful. It can be painful, can be just a goodbye. It goes all different ways, doesn't it? And so, yeah, just know that is a possibility. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that? Yeah.
I was just going to say that hospice chaplains, and I'd really argue the whole team, are often thought of as midwives for the soul. And this is sacred, holy ground, and it is a roller coaster. The rally before the end, very common. They've been unresponsive. And then there's this rally, and there's all these emotions and hopefulness, and then, but it is a roller coaster, and it is holy ground. And when you have a team there with you, you are not quite so alone. it's a very heavy burden and it's very hard. And you are not alone. And your hospice nurses who you call in the middle of the night when the breathing's changed, it's labored, they're in more pain, or they've died. You know, you don't call EMS and you don't have the sirens and you don't have the all of that trauma. You have the nurse that's traditionally been with you come in and handle that initial decedent care process. So it's very holy ground, but it is a team of midwives to help that birthing.
Mhm. And just to make sure that the picture is painted, it's a team, but they're not always going to be right there. I mean, you have them as it's a team of resources, maybe. Is that because you know you can call them and they'll walk with you at that time, but then the patient goes another way, you know. And so it really is a roller coaster is a good description. Um, uh, I don't want to make it sound like they're going to be right there with you the whole time. No, they've got other patients.
It is
Yeah.
not 24/7 care.
No, it is not.
And it is only 24/7 care in an inpatient facility when they can bill. I mean, here's the truth. When they can bill 24 hours versus a per diem per day, based on where you live in a county, the government is going to give the hospice $147 per day to take care of that patient. You can't bill continuous unless you're managing symptoms, and they can't be managed at home. And that's why often in hospices, you're only there for symptom management and you go home, or you're there at the very end. But it is not long-term.
Cindy, yeah, one sec. Mhm,
A lot of us here are the seniors, not the kids.
mhm.
What can we do besides the medical power of attorney that will help them?
Mm,
What can we do now before we lose it?
mhm. Yes, medical power of attorney and the living will, which is what that Lynette was talking about, which is your wishes to relieve the family. Get your durable power of attorney set up. Mine was set up with my dad long before he needed it, and it's for the case of when they can't do it anymore. And if you have that trust there, I don't mean a trust, I mean trust. Then you know you end up doing their finances. You know, and so you're doing it anyway. But the durable power of attorney covers that and makes it clear in the family as to who is going to be in that place. And then your will.
Yes.
Your will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
make wishes known, Cindy. Not only a family meeting, but also in writing. I don't want to die at home because I'm just saying this. I do, but if I can. But if you don't want to die at home, or I don't want my loved one to go through that, or I don't want to be in a facility, or I don't want to, and be careful for your loved ones to not make promises they may not be able to keep. The guilt and the regret and remorse. We promised mom we'd never put her in a nursing home. Please don't promise that. Most of us cannot be a 24/7 caregiver for somebody who has a high needs. But have those conversations and also put it in writing, what you want.
And don't put your loved one in a nursing home. Call Paul Markowitz and get a group home because the care is so much better and so much more personal. Okay, Lynn, and then Wendy.
If you have a durable power of attorney, do you also need a medical power of attorney?
Yes, they're different things.
That's, thank
Yeah,
you.
the medical power of attorney is for your care if you are unable to make your decisions for yourself. And it ends at death. It ends at death. So they're both powers of attorney. Durable power of attorney is money, assets, all that stuff. Medical power of attorney is your yeah, and so, whoever attorney not decide whether they're going to be cremated, where they're going to be buried, what's going to happen. Those are things, just to answer your question, Cindy, is to say, this is what I want. There's a workbook, huh? It can be, it can be the same or it doesn't have to be. Yeah. Just depends on who you are in the family and how that works and who you want. And a living will, no, you need 4 really. There's the will, your actual will, the living will, which says my wishes, whether I want to be on a feeding tube. And then the durable power of attorney is money. And the medical power of attorney is the care of the person while they're alive. Yeah, decision making. This is exciting. We have lots of energy around this, and we have less than 1 minute. Do you have a question?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
We've had to move my uncle-in-law several times from
Mhm.
different kinds of care. Trust your gut.
Mhm.
Always trust your gut. I tell parents in preschools, I tell parents or people who are grieving or
Mhm.
having to make transitions into homes.
Mhm.
If something doesn't seem right, trust.
Amen. Amen to that. Yes. And I just want to say one other thing. Paul Markowitz deals with all of these. I mean, he is a good resource for hospice as well. And then you've got this church and people's experience. Yeah. Yes.
It's kind of been implied here, but all these directives and so forth, what you say needs to be pretty specific and right. So find somebody to help you get together so that it is legal good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, she's kind of stole my question because I have had my directive. I've had the paper sitting there on my desk for probably 3 years because I'm not, I may change my mind and all. And it may have been pointed out that somebody to assist in doing that. I know that sounds different, but I have one more. I want to echo the point about coordinating doctors. And I went through probably 5 doctors and I had to be the coordinator between the doctors. So to get that kind of help, I just want to.
Huge, huge. Yes. In closing, I have to go to the choir room right now. And I'm wondering if anyone would like to say a prayer over all of this as I go. Okay,
will.
thanks.
Unless Susan, Lisa,
No, please do.
let us pray. Gracious, mighty, and most merciful God, you are with us in every season of life.